G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. Today we have a team reveal, a team update for February. Let's go!
She's done it from nowhere. Hoisted the goal from inside the field. Rashid from the boundary. Dusty. Petty. Petrarca. Oh, wow. How good is that? The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, joined as always by Luke. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm going good, mate. There was a little bit of extra mayo on that Let's Go tonight. You're pumped up for team reveals, mate.
Team reveals. Everybody loves a team reveal.
They do.
It's a team reveal of the mighty Mike Oxlongs.
Yeah, good pause. I'm a little bit worried, actually, Mitch. I've got to drive the laptop here as well as talk to you, and I'm a bloke that can barely chew gum and walk. So,
well, let's see how you go, mate.
Yeah,
let's see how you go.
I'm in a bit of strife, I think.
It's going to be our final full-blown team reveal before the start of the season. So last chance for you guys to get an insight of what our teams are looking like.
Yep.
We will do maybe another podcast later where I want to talk about sort of, the possibles, the probables, the locks. But today
Don't use that word. It's a dirty word.
Yeah, well, the closer and closer we get to the season,
We are.
it's more and more usable. But today, going through your team, but also I'll give a look at my team as well and what I've got at each position. Now, I will say, just off the bat, my team, I spoke a bit about this in the podcast that we appeared on at the Fantasy Fanatics. The way I go about it before the preseason games start is I'll take a screenshot of my team, and then when the games start, I wipe my team clear and don't make any sort of changes until both preseason games are over, and then I'll start to fill in the team based on my possibles, probables, and locks, and sort of build it from the ground up when I know a bit more about the rookies, when I know a bit more about the guys whose roles I'm a bit uncertain about. So the team that I'll be sort of comparing to yours is the team that I had before the practice games on the weekend.
Okay. It sounds like a very scientific approach compared to mine. I basically crapped my dax about 5 minutes ago when I realised that I still had spots to fill in my team, and we were about to record this podcast. So there's a couple of, there's a few different things, but I'm kind of, I think what I've got here is something that's feasible. So.
Absolutely. So you're taking into account all the things we've heard over the last few days,
Certainly.
and everything like that. So without further waffling on, who have you got at D1 for us?
I toyed with the idea of maybe not having him there, but then, I realised not only would I get crucified by the fantasy public, but I'd also probably not get off to the best starts of the season. So Doc is my D1 currently. Let me go ahead and put him in.
Yes, so Sam Doherty there. I also have him at D1 at the moment. I don't believe either of us had him there in our last team reveal. You had him in the photo.
Yeah, it's all about the photo you put on Twitter.
Yeah,
mate.
So 24 hours after we did the video,
That's a stitch up, eh?
You tweeted the photo when he was in there, but he wasn't in my team in the last team reveal. But he has made his way in there now, at least prior to the preseason practice game. So I guess we're both paying up. I guess, is this more for you and for your team? Is it the lack of other options putting their hand up that makes you go in that Doherty direction, or are you confident in paying that much for a guy and you expect him to hold that 110 average this season?
It's actually a good point. When you put it to me like that, like if, let's say, I had the option and I felt really confident in going something like Brayshaw, Young, Daicos, Yo, I actually feel like that could be something that could tempt me.
Like those as your D1 to 4? Is that what you're sort of saying?
Yeah. So the guy on that list that is worrying me a little bit and hasn't really spent a lot of time in the Oxlongs this preseason is Hayden Young.
Okay.
But if I feel like if I felt confident in those guys that I just listed, there might be a scenario where I don't start with Doc. So I think that is pushing me, along with the fact that we just expect him to be D1 as well.
Yeah. So again, he might lose a little bit in cash, and I guess you've got to be prepared for that and expecting a bit of that, but we do expect him to be the D1 at the end of the season. I still expect him to be there, despite my concerns about having him. And I guess for me, the reason he is in my side and the reason he was in my side prior to the practice matches is the lack of other options. Yeah. And since the game where we watched on the weekend with the Melbourne Demons and Brayshaw's role didn't have that centre bounce attendances that we maybe were hoping for early in the preseason with Salem going down. So can you go against a player like Doherty with a player like Brayshaw as your D1 potentially, or another player like Dawson potentially as those D1 options? I still think it's a legitimate option and a legitimate play, but it's probably less lock and load like I did in the previous team reveals. So does that mean, do you still have a Brayshaw then at your D2?
Yeah, so I've got Angus Brayshaw. I'll go and whack him in there now at D2. He's a guy that really, to be honest, hasn't moved from my team. There might be a few people there after the weekend that are sort of thinking, halfback. But I was in the camp even before the weekend. I really wasn't too concerned whether he was playing halfback or midfield. I kind of half suspected that he might play halfback with Salem out. Yeah. And to me, he's still going to be a top 6 defender. I'm still happy to have him in my team. And then for me, I'm just sort of thinking about the fact that when they bring Salem back, then there's that potential for Brayshaw to go into the middle. So not one that really would surprise anyone out there if they've been listening to us, because he's one that's been spending most of the time on my team.
Yeah, and I think Lockie Hunter coming in obviously cements the fact that he's not going to see that wing role, which is what we want him to stay away from. Again, pretty similar, tick for tat so far. I do have Angus Brayshaw at D2 as well. So a couple of big dogs in our defensive line, 2 players that we expect to be, top 4, I would say, in their line. Yep. So maybe paying up a bit compared to some other teams out there just because of the lack of confidence in other options. So do you have your boy there at D3?
Yeah,
this is where we might differ.
I do have Daicos in there at D3 currently. And I mentioned last night when we spoke to Bales and Tim that for me over the weekend, he's sort of firmed in my calculations. There wasn't anything that I saw that worried me. I think that the midfield only presents upside, and I think even if he does end up on the half back line, I think that he can still be close to a top 6 defender. So you said there might be a difference. You go on a different way.
So this is where I go the other sort of guy that these guys always seem to be tied at the hip. I've got Hayden Young at my D3 spot with this one here.
That's brave after our afternoon on Friday.
Well, like I said, this is what I had before the games, and it hasn't changed since then. I still think he's very much an option. We also had the news today that basically I think Luke Ryan is not going to be playing in the final practice match as well.
That's so interesting.
Which presents a little bit of just that extra bit of risk in terms of we won't see the relationship on how that works. We have heard in the preseason in general that Hayden Young has still been taking some kick-ins off a player like Luke Ryan. I don't think he's going to completely dominate them, but anything increasing on his sort of, 12% last year, if they can go 50-50, that at least is a few more points of upside in my eyes. Yeah. Look, Hayden Young, I was pretty keen on him before, but maybe not so much now. Daicos is definitely someone who has elevated in my opinion. I was, obviously with this team here, I'm going against a player like that, sort of betting that the fact that he does have a somewhat low floor, maybe he gets a bit more attention. I still think that, even if he does move into the midfield, he still could get tagged. He's still probably their best and most damaging player, especially with some of the things we saw on the weekend with him breaking away from the pack and kicking goals from 50 metres. He's still kind of the guy that if I was an opposing coach, I'd try to lock him down. So
yeah, it's a valid concern. I think if you could only select him as a midfielder, then it wouldn't be somewhere I'd be going. But I think that with what he can do, and let's be honest, still I would say most of the teams in the league probably opt not to tag. If you looked at all the games in the AFL over the whole year, I think there'd be more games where there's no tag than there is games where there's a tag. Yep. And I think that being a defender, I think like we've sort of spoken about, he can get there or thereabouts in that D6 role. I think he's going to go mid to low 90s at the very least, which puts him there around the mark. So
yeah, look, I think he's definitely not a bad selection. I guess to me, it's just I don't think he's going to be someone that kills you, and that's why I'm sort of okay with not having him on my side when he's so popular. And then there's that off chance that in a new role coming into the midfield, and again, I know he did it as a junior, but the AFL is a different beast. So coming into that, I think he's got a couple of tough matchups to start off with. It could present the opportunity to have a few lower scores, and if a player like a Hayden Young can maybe have that higher floor to start the season at a similar price, a bit more unique, I think that is a play. But I am also experimenting, like you said before, with the Doherty down to a player like a Daicos, which would free up $200,000 for me if I wanted to to get that to pay up for some of my rookies or fix up some other things in the rest of the ground. So
if Hayden Young stinks it up on the weekend, are you going to go to Daicos? In a word.
Maybe.
You weaseled out of that one so good. Well played. I'll leave you there, mate. Let's go on to D4.
Who's at D4?
Mitch has not given us a straight answer. So we are going to the Yo-Yo Man. Elliot Yo.
I think he's going to be in a lot of sides. I mean, he's at my D4 too. I guess the question is for a lot of people is, where is he? Is he D3? Is he D4? I don't think he's probably D5. D5 is probably a bit too deep. You're probably paying a bit too much.
And I think D3 could be a bit too shallow. It depends, I guess, who you've got then at D4, 5 and 6.
Yeah, you're probably in that case looking at maybe doing like a Mechanic Constable at D4. Or maybe like a Will Day or a Hunter Clark or someone of those types at a D4.
Some people are still on McGrath as an option.
Yeah, so those kind of the players that move his position around. I'm assuming if you've got him at D4, you don't have some of those types in your team.
No, I don't have it. I haven't been big on sort of any of those guys. There's a guy that played pretty well on the weekend that's kind of you'll see next is in my side. But still that's kind of subject to change as well.
Yeah.
But Elliot Yo I know your team isn't based on stuff we saw on the weekend, but mine is a little bit, and Yo played well.
I think he's obviously reaffirmed the reason we had him in our sights before the practice matches. So he's definitely there in my D4. I still am giving myself the wiggle room of those Will Day, Hunter Clark types. I think those two are the ones I'm most keen on. I'm not as keen on a Jack Bowes. I just think that Geelong team is so deep and his role is by no means secure based on what we saw on the weekend.
I think the coach even came out and said that today.
I think there was a quote saying that, there's no guarantees about their starting 22 and things like that. So for me, a player like that is a bit further behind some of those other guys. But Will Day and Hunter Clark are still, maybe, if we go to the probables, possibles, they're possibles.
Yeah.
And again, it's very much a structure thing for me. So D5, is it our Gold Coast boy?
I've got the police officer in there, the constable.
The constable.
So he's a fellow that I've essentially picked based on his performance on the weekend. But like I said, he is to an extent a placeholder there as well. It's one data point from the weekend. It's going to be me having a look on this coming weekend and playing around with my structure and seeing if he still fits in there. But based on Mitch's superior counting skills.
Well, I heard 47 on another podcast today.
Okay.
I think it was the Traders actually. They said 47. So I must have been off.
You must have been off. Okay, well, I mean, 44 was your kind of magic number on the weekend, wasn't it?
Close.
For Gus and for Constable. But Constable's in there at the moment, and that makes me just feel a little bit better than maybe running like a Jimby at 5 and then a rookie.
He's really not much than a rookie price.
No, and that's it. But it must be a mentality thing for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess at least he's a player that has a. Yeah, you've got a bit more data on.
He's averaged 80 before. I think it was not in a huge sample size, but and it wasn't a midfield Geelong team. But I think the role that he has there looks nice. Like we sort of said, he was taking kick-ins and demanding that he would take the kick-ins as well.
Yeah.
I wonder what happens when those guys come back. But even if he's only in there for like a month or 5 weeks, it's still enough at that price when you talk about him and view him as a rookie that can score well and be on your ground. I think it's a fine thing. I haven't got him in my team at the moment.
I'm guessing based on the fact
but I think he is someone that definitely is in the possibles and probables kind of scenario for me. Again, it comes back to structure and how much cash I'll have and who I want to fit in, but I think he is definitely someone that we should all be considering as well. So I've got Ruben Jimby at my D5 at the moment. So at the moment I've got 2 rookies in my back line there, but again, like we said, before these practice matches. And again, I think we didn't get to see him. I think he is supposed to be playing this weekend, so fingers crossed that he is there and he'll be there in round 1. But I'm assuming he's your D6.
Yes, the big red Mack truck.
Yes, the big red Mack truck. He's a big lad. He looks like he's gonna go into potentially some of those midfield minutes. I'm not expecting a lot, but
we've said it with the rookies. We don't mind as long as their job security is
there. As long as they're in there, yeah. So I think he's one of the more popular rookies for a reason. So my D5, your D6. I have still a Lockie Cowan at D6 at the moment.
Yep.
From what I saw on the weekend, he looked like he showed flashes to me. I know some people are saying that he might not be the guy in there. I think is it Cincinnati or Cincinnati or butchered that.
Chibata. No, we got to get it right.
Oh yeah, I'm looking him up now. But he was the other guy from.
I'm going to go Chincotta.
Yeah, Chincotta. There you go. That's way better than mine. What did I say?
You had 3 different goes and none of them went near it.
Alex Chincotta was the other guy that some people are saying might be ahead of him, but I don't know. For me, Lockie Cowan did look classy in the game. So if he is named, I think that he's someone we can definitely have a look at as a potential guy on our ground. He's got some good raps as a scorer as a junior. So for now, he's in my side. But again, I want to watch him again this coming weekend and see how he goes.
I think that's fair enough. In terms of our bench options on the rookie, I think it goes without saying that these guys are certainly subject to change based on selection and stuff. But most of us at the moment are filling our bench with guys that we've heard a bit about. So I've got the 2 W's on the bench. I've got Weddle and Wilmot.
Yep, I've got the same. Yep.
So Weddle there, obviously for Hawthorn, a chance of getting a role potentially in their defence, and then Wilmot, we heard some positive news.
I'm getting more and more confident about Wilmot. I think he is going to hopefully be an option there for us to save some cash on our bench in the defensive line. So
certainly. So that kind of rounds out our defenders.
All right, let's move on to the mids.
Let's do it. Indeed.
Who's on your M1 there? Is it the same as last time, or you switched it up?
I think it is the same as last time, and I've got your boy Jack Steele.
Oh, I think you
M1. Have I changed it?
I think from memory you had the Baz Linker there, and I think we were different. I had him there last time, and he is still there for me as well. But
so I've jumped on the train here.
You jumped on the train at Jack Steele.
I've got Jackie
the
there.
buzz cut man.
Yeah, I guess he's persuaded me with that buzz cut. I couldn't look away. So it looks like he's slimmed down as well, which I mean,
he has lost a bit of weight.
Yeah, and some people might say, "Oh, how does that impact his tackling?" I think it's more of a positive. He's going to cover the ground more, so he's going to pop out for some more +6s. And trust me, with how professional the strength and conditioning guys are at AFL clubs, you're not going to drop a guy's weight like that and compromise his strength.
There's a purpose there, and he's done it for a reason, and so I think that's fine.
You'd obviously know, being in the industry, there's ways that you can drop weight but still maintain that strength.
Yeah,
and so
100%.
I don't think that's going to be an issue with him getting in there, getting +4s, and then also popping out for +6s. So he sells himself a little bit for me.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Who's your M2 then?
Now, this is where this is spicy because I haven't done this all season.
Okay, all right. Throw me a curveball.
Your boy, Josh Dunkley.
Oh, he's gone the forward in the mids.
So
all right.
this is real weird for me. I feel a bit weird doing it, but like I said, I've got something different here. So your boy Dunkley. And I mean, when I say Dunkley, like, it could be any of
the forwards.
Do you know what I mean?
But he's the most expensive. It looks the best in the midfield.
Yeah,
so.
And it was just like, if I put him there, I can really drop the mic.
Yeah.
Make everyone think, what's he doing?
M2, Josh Dunkley. Okay.
He's cocked it up.
So is this maybe a reaction to another guy leaving your midfield, potentially, of the Mitchell variety?
Yeah, mate, I told you I was out of the clown car. It was just everyone was out and I was out there first.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Oh, look, I've thought about this as well since that game, and I've been exploring options in my head and things like that. So
mate,
I think when you lose a value option like that, this kind of a play gains more
traction.
Yeah, more traction in my opinion, and it seems more legitimate. So, look, I think the logic is sound. Obviously, you've got an extra forwards. You think all the forwards are value, and if you think that they're more value than some of the mids are, that can get close to that top 8 line, then I think that's fine. Yeah,
well, it will all kind of come out when I show the forward line where that kind of switch has been made. But I'm so bad. Hey, like, if he plays well this weekend, I'll be like traded back in. I don't know. I'm bad, but at the moment he's not in there, so maybe I'll get crucified for that one.
So Tom Mitchell out.
Tom Mitchell out. So let's then go to M3. I've jumped on your boy LDU here.
Okay.
It's contagious. I've been convinced.
So is that right in me saying that you don't have Bailey Smith?
Oh, no, I've cocked the order up. So I've done a classic cock up. Sorry, guys. So Baz Linker
at M3.
At M3. And then I guess I've done a big old spoiler there. But Luke Davies-Uniacke in at M4.
Okay, yeah. So I've still got Bailey Smith at M2.
Yep.
I do have Tom Mitchell at M3.
Sorry, I just ran off and you didn't get to review.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's okay. and then I've got LDU at M4. So again, pretty similar. Your Dunkley in the midfield, and of course the forward will be revealed later, as opposed to my Tom Mitchell. I still have him in there, but I am obviously thinking of other options.
Yep.
So LDU, you've jumped on board.
I've jumped on board. I mean, it was hard to resist based on what we saw on the weekend. The narrative that I'm selling myself is, he's going to maintain that high CBA percentage, and even with Simpkin and Cunnington coming back in, I just don't see that LDU is the guy where they take the CBAs off him.
I think for those of people who are very spooked by the Tom Mitchell thing, if you don't have LDU, and again, I hope this is just a little gift for a lot of people that are listening to our podcast, but this guy, I think, is an easy, straight swap. Like, if you didn't already have him and you want to get off Tom Mitchell, LDU is cheaper.
I think
he's going to be doing basically what I expected Tom Mitchell to do prior to this past weekend's games. And I think that he is someone who's 9% owned in AFL Fantasy right now. It's gone up 1% since the weekend, so some people are jumping on, but I think he's a great pick.
Spoke about this briefly as well with on the Fantasy Fanatics one that we did last night as well. And for me, I actually took more out of what Scott Pendlebury came out and said than I actually did from the performance. And I'll explain it. The reason why I think that what Pendlebury came out and said, which was basically Tom Mitchell's not going to be a 40 disposal guy. He's going to play his role in our team. The reason why that holds so much weight for me is because you've got a leader of that football club coming out and alleviating some pressure off Tom Mitchell's shoulders for all those people out there that were ready to judge him if he didn't have a 40-possession game. Yep. Scott Pendlebury said, we don't care if he has a 40-possession game. We want him to play his role. So for me, that was very much a sort of a notion of intent there, saying we're not wanting this guy to just rack it up aimlessly, I guess is the word. Yeah, okay. No, I agree with that. It was definitely just the combination of the quote, the Collingwood game style, the amount of players that went through that midfield, the fact that Tom Mitchell was playing forward. It's just a whole bunch of different combinations that are a bit scary. So I think it's a legitimate thing to at least be exploring other options. Again, let's watch this weekend and see what happens, but obviously, a lot of people are jumping off, and I think it's a valid thing to be worried about. So we'll go through your M5 through M8 pretty quickly because I imagine these are all... I mean, unless you're going to throw me another curveball here. No, sorry.
These seem like pretty...
I'll try not to stuff up the order here, but we've got Dom Sheed in at M5. I suspect you're the same.
Yep.
He didn't do himself any harm. He didn't rack up a heap of the ball, but...
I think he should be very popular and for good reasons.
And watching that game, I think he was looking for those little short 45 kicks that we know he likes, little plus sixes. So I think he's still a guy that will be getting around in most teams. Then the guy that you must have, if you don't have him, then pack your bags and go home. Will Ashcroft is at M6 for me, and I'm assuming for you as well.
Yep, he is there.
And then followed by another one of the North Melbourne boys, Will Phillips.
Yep, he was in the centre bounces on the weekend. Obviously, no Simpkin and no Cunnington, but the fact that he is at least getting some midfield time is good news, and at 270k... Mate, as long as you're in the team and if you're getting any midfield time, that's a bonus and cherry on top, in my opinion.
Correct. And then the last midfield spot currently is held by Mr. McKenzie from Hawthorn.
Yep.
That one kind of comes down to what we see next.
So he obviously didn't play. He didn't play, and I forgot to mention this on the podcast the other day. The reason he didn't play was because he had a corked quad.
Yep.
It was not reported on Twitter, but I did catch the commentators saying that during the broadcast, I think in the first or second quarter there. So had a corky, and they were holding him out. So hopefully it's not something that holds him out much longer. You would hope that that is the case, and from what I've heard, they do have big raps on the guy. So hopefully he does play this weekend coming up. If he doesn't, we do start to get a little bit concerned. But if we'll usually find out with these kind of guys if they get names. You have the videos of them calling their parents and all those sort of things like a few days before the game.
Yeah, we should get some notice. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have some notice on that one. And if we don't start hearing anything before round one, well, then we've got to start making alternative plans. So I have all of those guys here. Now, I am getting a little bit worried with the bench for our midfielders because there's a few guys that put their hand up on the field. They're a bit more expensive, but in terms of bench players, I think there's we're a bit short on options for midfielders on our bench, at least the cheap options.
The 200k ones.
So who have you got at M9 and M10?
The guys, I've gone with a couple of West Coast boys, and like I said, it's all subject to change on the bench. Like you said, there's a bit of a battle there to find, 200k rookies that are playing. At the moment, there's a few DPP guys that obviously you could pull up there, but you want to have some of them in your forward line as well. So I've just gone Chesser and Long on my midfield bench, and we'll kind of see how that evolves at the minute. Who have you got there?
Yeah, so that's Noah Long, is that correct? From the Eagles, I think. I don't know too much about him. I know that I've heard his name being thrown out and around, but I must admit I haven't been across what he has been doing or how he's been looking in the preseason. So maybe someone that I need to look into as well. But I have heard him being talked about as a potential debutant for round 1, but don't know much about him at all. But I've still got Matthew Johnson and Blake Drury in there from the Roos, both of which they probably didn't strengthen their case for round 1 selections this past
Johnson
weekend.
Played in the
Johnson did play
Scoobies, but I think,
did he?
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard that.
He might have come on at the end of the first game.
Yeah, so it was like one of those kind of situations where it wasn't. Yeah,
he wasn't in there. Maybe the first half, but played the second half.
Something like that, I think.
That kind of tells me that maybe he's an outside chance. So I'm going to have to start to look at different options. So hopefully we do get a player like a Campbell Chesser and some of those other DPP guys, because the pure mids, I'm not seeing a whole lot of 200Ks or cheaper guys put their hands up at the moment. So still a lot to happen, but fingers crossed we might have to maybe pay up a little bit on the bench there for our midfield, which, ideally we don't want to do. So we'll keep looking at that one. Let's move on to the rucks. R1.
No surprises here, mate. I suspect you have the same bloke, but Rowan Marshall is my R1 currently, and I reckon he's the R1 for quite a few teams.
Well, he's R1. He's the lock at the ruck position. Whether or not he's R1 based on price is maybe still up for debate.
Depending on
if you go in English, but yeah, he's obviously, I think everyone's locked in ruckman at the moment.
Cool.
And so I think we saw him on the weekend, Tommy Campbell. Hopefully, maybe we'll get a better idea this weekend if he's in there and his wife isn't delivering a baby.
Yeah,
so,
well, like I said, his hands are going to be full. I reckon he should have a few months off footy, to be honest.
Just spend time with your newborn child.
You should, hey. I think, we don't...
Footy will be there later.
That's right. Be selfish, Tommy. Don't spend some time. No need to rush back.
Be a family man. So who's your R2 then? I'm interested to hear this take.
Yeah, look, you sort of... I'll say you, but there's a bit of a wave of support out there for Lysette and Forget at R2.
Calvinator was pretty keen on it on today's Traders podcast.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to listen to the boys, but I'll certainly be doing that in the next little bit. But I think what happened on the weekend really firmed for me that he's the big dog at Port Adelaide. Teakle would be blown over by a stiff breeze, I think, having a look at him on the weekend. And Lysette just looks like he's just an imposing figure out there.
He's that classic bruising kind of a ruckman.
If I was a Port Adelaide midfielder and you put Lysette and Teakle in front of me, I'm going, park up, Teakle. Big Lysette, can you jump in here with me? So, for me, that job security and being in that number 1 ruck role, I feel like gives me confidence. But let's say you come to round 1 selection and suddenly both of them are selected. That makes me crap my dacks a little bit.
Yeah. I think that is kind of how it's going to look for me. If he's in there on his own, that's kind of where I'm looking to go.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to a guy that you've been talking about. I've got Lysette at R2 as well, just in case anyone's wondering. But Tristan Zeri is another guy that I know you've talked to me about.
What are you going to do? Are you going to jump on?
I do just think it's a good shout because I think Goldstein is... I think he's dealing with a bit of an injury thing at the moment.
Alzheimer's.
Maybe. He's that old enough. I don't have the news on the top of my head, so maybe
if that happens, that's my hottest take yet.
Yeah, well, it'd be a great take. So, look, it's another kind of situation where if he's named without a Goldstein... Look, he's actually not that much cheaper than a Lysette. I think it's only like 40k, but he does have a good upside. He might even have a higher upside than a Lysette. Maybe a lower floor.
Too.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean?
It could be between the rookies.
Yes.
You might need to have to get pay up on your bench if you have to. Yeah. So I do just want to give you a shout out at the Tristan Jerry take, because I think it sounds crazy, but I think if we don't see Goldstein in that same team, I think it's potentially a risky play, but a potential one that could be pulled off.
How many, hypothetical, if Goldie is out, how many weeks would you need to be guaranteed of him being out
good question.
To go to that play? Because if it's like 1 or 2, then it's like, no.
Yeah, I'd love a month.
At least.
I'd probably, because by then maybe you're looking to try and upgrade that as maybe your first upgrade.
Yeah.
And into that way, like an English, round 5, round 6.
And you're buying yourself a month to
have
see.
a look.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I think that is the thing there, whereas a Scott Lysette, you kind of... The way I see it is a player like Teakle, he's a development kind of project at the moment, and I don't know if they're going to throw him in there, a month into the season. Like, he's kind of a guy that sort of would benefit more from VFL or Sandful time there. So, R3, who have you got?
I've got Max Heath in there at the minute.
Yeah, St Kilda. So you haven't jumped on the Sydney Ruckman that everyone's sort of...
No, I haven't, to be honest. I kind of like the idea of being able to loop off the bat. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. Some people, I'm sure, will be very averse to that. But for me at the moment, Heath... St Kilda played the last game of the round, so it's your perfect loop option.
You can have a look at any option in terms of your vice captaincy, any rookie. Oh, well, I suppose you can't do the rookie loops, but I think let's have a look at Sydney. Sydney play the Friday. Oh no, sorry, I'm looking at the practice matches here. So in round 1, Sydney do play the Saturday night. So,
but if he plays, it doesn't matter then, does it?
Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is, what you could do is say you had a loop on like the Friday or a Thursday, and say that loop flops, and you're not going to take the vice captaincy. Well, then maybe you go for the playing R3.
I understand.
But if he goes really well, then maybe you go for that. Red dot. I don't know how long the Sydney Ruckmen are out. I know that I think...
if it comes out that they're out for months and months, then it's probably what you go with because you get that cash generation.
Yeah, I think Laddams is the question. So I think... who's the other Ruckman? I'm blanking off the top. Yeah, he's out for... I think they've named it the first portion of the season. I don't know. Okay. It's very up in the air. I think but maybe 4 to 6 weeks. But Hickey, I think... is questionable for round 1. So for me, that kind of means that he's probably not far away, which is why I think that, the red dot is still a play. Yeah. If we had a guarantee that he was out, 5 to 6 weeks, then you'd probably rather that cash and sort of use that VC loophole as sort of your tiebreaker.
Yep.
But I think that, still a wait and see on the health of the Sydney Ruckman there on that option. I also have Max Heath currently as my R3. All right, so if Dunkley is not your F1, let me know who is your F1, because Dunkley is obviously mine.
Currently, Timmy T is my F1.
Yep.
Timmy Taranto. And that's, you kind of sort of see, as this forward line's revealed, kind of the tweaks that I've made in the last little bit. So Taranto at F1 for me, I think, he sold himself on the weekend. Who
70% CBAs, kicked a couple of snags when he was resting forward, just looks like a jet.
He does. So I think he definitely did himself no harm in people's teams. You've obviously got Dunkley at F1, and I'm assuming that you probably have Taranto.
I have Taranto F2. Pretty sold on him for being my squad.
Stock standard. For me, at F2, that guy now becomes Rosie.
Connor Rosie, yeah.
So he... I don't know. I think some people were looking for him to just be all up in that midfield on the weekend. But I was happy with what I saw. He played midfield minutes. He went forward. He kicked some goals. And I think it's hard to get a genuine read on that role with Butters out as well. And I don't necessarily subscribe to the notion that, if Butters was in, that actually takes away from Rosie's
I think Willem Drew might be looking like he's maybe on the outer at the moment now, and he was obviously in there for a bit of time as well, so I think he would be the first player to lose out when Butters goes in based on the weekend stats.
And it could also be, if they've decided that they want to play Butters a bit more forward, then it could have actually been Rosie having to go forward to fill a bit of that spot. So, this is just me.
We'll hopefully get more of an idea this weekend and see how he goes.
But nothing I saw gave me reason to take him out.
Rosie's here at my F3, which was a Dylan Moore, I think, in the last team reveal. But even before this weekend, I had made that switch. This weekend... put a bit more of a faint line across his name. So Connor Rosie, the reason I had here, I just needed that extra bit of money to make the rest of my team work. So Rosie was obviously a bit cheaper than a Dylan Moore, and now he looks like he's going to score better than a Dylan Moore as well. So I think I have a sinking suspicion who's at your F3, but
so at the moment,
who have you got here?
This, I suppose, is the other big change. Mitchell came out and this fella came in. There'll be people out there who call this move kind of, reactionary, which is fair enough too. But remember, we're just looking at one data point at the moment, and I'll definitely need to see what I want to see this weekend to actually firm this guy's position in the team.
Yep.
The guy I'm talking about is Errol Goulden from the Swannies. So
Goulden, all right.
He's in now at F3, and if I see another game where it's very, very obvious that the big horse Longmire wants him in at the CBAs and he has 50 to 70% CBAs, I said it last night, but that for me is a very distinct move.
That's not just falling into that.
No, that's not accidental. You don't go from last year 10% CBAs and then in 2 practice matches play 70% CBAs, and it's like, oh, that just accidentally happened.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to do that. That for me is a really distinct move. And if he's a guy that plays 50 to 70% CBAs throughout the year, then I see there being some serious upside there, especially for a guy who's incrementally increased his average in the last 2 years, 3 years, 2 years.
So he's only played 2 years, and in those 2 seasons, he's gone 72.6 as a rookie, and then 83 on the dot last year. He also averaged 95 in his last 5 when he did move a bit more onto a wing role, I've read and heard.
That's good on a wing role.
Now, that is obviously massively inflated by the 155 that he scored in this 4th last game. So,
waxing.
Take that stat with a bit of a grain of salt. But in saying that, he was 10% CBAs last year. Well, first of all, we saw the 70% CBAs on the weekend. I'm not going to come out here and pretend that I think he's going to be a 70% midfielder. No,
that would be unrealistic.
But what do we expect? And again, we're using just all the data we have right now. Do you think he's like a 50% CBA guy? And if that is the case, what do you think he can average in that role?
So if you were to tell me now he's going to be a 50% CBA guy, then I'm picking him.
Yeah.
And look, I think that he could go at least 95 in that 50% CBA role, and I'd be hoping for even more.
Yeah, I think there's a chance for 100.
Yeah.
But I think 95 is pretty good, and that's 12 points of upside.
Yeah.
He's cheaper than some of those Butters, Rosie sort of types, so essentially you save a bit of money on them. And
the big sort of move that I've made there is I've changed my mind on where the value is. In my initial team reveal, I thought the value was with Tom Mitchell. And based on what's happened this weekend, and maybe what happened last weekend, and maybe what will happen this weekend, is that I think maybe that value could be moving to Errol Goulden, which has prompted that move of Dunkley to the midfield to free up the space for Goulden. But
and you've used that cash also to get obviously get Doherty in, get Constable in from a rookie as well, with the addition of Lysette from your last team reveal as well. So going one fewer rookies. I think obviously now you've got, if my calculations are correct, 6 rookies now.
I had 4 rookies on the field last in the midfield, and now I've got
so now you're a bit deeper in that position as well. Obviously, the LDU addition as well from last team reveal.
Bit of cash from Lysette.
Yeah, so a few decent changes from last team, and obviously a few things still to watch. So I'm assuming your forward line is kind of like a lot of other forward lines, and you've got a Toby McLean there at F4.
Yeah, so I think we're going to pretty much have an identical team from here on in, at least on the field. So McLean comes in at F4. There might have been some people playing around with Millerer, but I just don't know. The fella doesn't float my boat.
He's not going to play this weekend because of personal reasons.
Yeah, it's probably a line through him there. So that probably firms McLean in a lot of sides. And then from that point, we go down to
a couple of rookies.
Rooks. So I think I had the Mark Philippoussis in there. And my last rook there was your boy, the Cheezel. Harry Cheezel, I think.
Harry Cheezel, yeah. I think he's and again, I don't like to use this word, but if he's there round 1, I think he's pretty much a lock for a lot of our sides. He looked so good from what I saw on the weekend, and And if he, even in that high half forward role, I think he can score pretty well just by being a bit of a jet. So I think that those are pretty standard forward lines. I have both of those guys as well. Who have you got rounding out the bench in the forward line and also your utility?
On the bench, I had Fergus Green in the forward line, and I had the cyclist, Lukey Pedler.
The cyclist,
mainly
yes.
just because I wanted to say the cyclist.
Yep.
And then at the utility, I've got your boy Chibata.
Chibata. What's his actual name again? I've forgotten it already. Chincotta. Okay.
The Chincotta Warrior. Isn't that a thing? Oh, it's the Terracotta Warrior.
Yeah.
That was close, but...
That was close. Yeah. I'll give you points for it.
I think Chibata. Do you think we run with Chibata?
Yeah, let's go Chibata.
The bread.
Yeah, the bread. the baker.
The baker. Yeah, so was your... What was your...
I have the peddler, the cyclist as well, and Fergus Green, and I've also got Cade Chandler there. Again, had this in before the preseason game. I did see him a little bit in that Melbourne team. I don't know if he is locked in to be that round one guy, and if he is, he's not going to be a high scorer either. Just that small forward, similar to a peddler type. But yeah, the Baker Chibata could be the guy that is in there as well at the utility spot. Again, just still waiting a little bit more information on who these rookies are, especially the basement price rookies coming through. So obviously, still of that kind of placeholder thing, but again, we're trying to narrow our focus into guys that we are seeing more of and have a bit more of a realistic look on what these benches can look like. So
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see what people have to say there, especially with a couple of the moves that I've made there. Dunkley into the midfield could be contentious. So if you vehemently disagree with that one, let us know. But if you think there's some merit to it, please let us know as well.
Yeah. How much? Just quietly, how much money do you have left in the bank?
$40K.
Okay, yeah.
So, definitely let me know if you think I'm being reactionary.
Yeah, let us know down in the comments below, guys. That will do it for us today, I think. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Even if you are, listening along on a lot of the podcast, the audio platform, we would appreciate just head on over to YouTube, subscribe, get out of it, and then go back to listen to the podcast. Just would love any support over there. Trying to get to our, apparently 100,000, but we'll start with 1,000 subscribers first. So please do that if you haven't. Give it a big thumbs up, guys, and we're going to be going through some fixture analysis next pod. Laters.